I'm just going to put two. Firstly, Aaron, you spoke about the GPS system that would supply my driving data to the insurance company. Why would I be willing to supply that to the insurance company?
Well, I'll start and John can probably carry on with the answer to this. But essentially it's around being able to provide very individualised information to the insurance company to assess the way in which you drive the vehicle. I'd be absolutely willing to have my information passed over to the insurance company, except for, as I was telling John, when I'm backing. The only 2 insurance claims I've had, I've just backed my car into brick walls. So there's something about backing in that doesn't agree with me. But otherwise, driving forwards is fine. And I think that most people have...
reassuring.
that view that they are safe drivers. And also, there's been examples of and trials that have occurred in Australia and elsewhere that suggest that once you are being monitored, you will actually change your driving behaviour. So it'll reduce the risk in a systemic way.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's right. I think what's surprising, or what's become surprising, is the ways in which you can get people to give up their data. And you know, it used to be that you thought, well, if I give them enough off their policy, their premium, then you know they'll want to do it. But a lot of the new telematics products that are getting out there, they actually don't give you a discount. They give you a whole lot of other stuff, and that might be other financial benefits. It might be other things you give away. But a lot of this gamification that's going on, a lot of people. Get sucked into those sorts of things. And gamification in itself is not necessarily any financial incentive, but it really has attracted particularly overseas. So some of these ancillary ways of getting people to let go of their data are much more powerful.
So that technology is in operation at the moment, or to come, do you think?
No, absolutely, yeah, absolutely, and is a big feature of any app-based telematics launch that's happened, at least in the last 12 months, is if you don't have gamification in there, it's only a half effort. Yeah.
The other thing interesting to me, if we look at the amount of data that's been created in just 20 years, and we look at that exponential growth rate, how on earth do we cope with the amount of data we're going to have by about 2025 or 2030? And then we're only 40 years into this journey.
Yeah, well, it might be a question for NT. How are we going to?
It doesn't seem to be slowing down, I think, in terms of what's being stored and what's being created. And people even talk now about data exhaust, and they kind of say, in a lot of your enterprises, when you're doing your big data warehouses, the reality is you often don't store a lot of the original source information because it's too big. So you sort of abstract the data and you store that and then you analyse it. And what the people are now realising is actually value in this sort of data exhaust, or a lot of the original source data. And so I think as the cost comes down and as performance gets better, I think you'll just find more and more of this stuff, is stored on the cloud.
So we just keep building more data centres as well? Or?
Yeah, or the ones you've got get more efficient, I think, as well. Yep.
And just touching back on that, in the case of telematics, that's exactly what does happen. It gets stored up in the cloud, and the people who are using it are never seeing the raw data. They're seeing some summarised set of data there. So you always need to be able to go back to the source, but for most users, some summarised form of that is sufficient.
Fantastic. Any last final question? Yes, Jane.
Thanks for the three of you. I thought it was a great presentation. Paul, I think another lesson that's inadvertently come out of your presentation is how Microsoft is evolving. And I think we have to confront ourselves as an industry about how we rapidly evolve to face the future, and what you're doing with cycles and shortening that cycle of release, but also not being so precious about your heritage and being protectionist, and the move that you highlighted about moving Office onto iPad. Many a time I've been hassled by you by using my iPad in the Corrie Lounge, but I think, you're working through how to collaborate more, I think, to create value for the consumer, and that must have taken quite a big cultural challenge for your organisation.
Well, I personally think the biggest thing that we all have to go through is often, when you're in an industry, especially if you've been really successful, and then you can see things are changing. You spend a lot of time initially in defensive mode. You want to hold on to what you know. You want to defend what you've got. You want to extract every last little bit of value out of what you've got. You want to make it difficult for customers to switch. You want to do a whole lot of stuff because you're in a defensive way of thinking. And I think it's taken us probably several years, but we've got to the point now where I think once you get past that sort of fear-based approach and you can see what the massive opportunities are, and you know there's going to be a lot of change and learning along the way, it's also a lot more empowering for staff, because then you're actually able to get on the front foot when you're helping drive a change or a transformation, and often then you become the challenger in some of these new markets where perhaps before you were the incumbent. And it's quite energising, but it's very confronting, and there's no guarantees that any of our businesses will be here, in 10 or 15 years' time, just because we've been really successful in the past. I think no longer is necessarily guaranteed that we're going to continue to be successful in the future. I think tradition is increasingly less respected, and innovation kind of wins.